following video is sponsored by Audible. Stay tuned for a message later on in the video. You don't play Zelda games for their stories, would some say, but for us in the Zelda community, that statement is simply wrong, as the Zelda series is full of great stories of courage and the people surrounding the hero, Link. And often your companions, opponents, villains, and even side characters help elevate the story to something greater. So today, let's go over the stories that left the greatest mark on all of us, or specifically, me, Conrad, since this is my list. But first, be sure to leave a like, subscribe us, we have surpassed 275,000 subscribers, thank you so much, and are pushing next for 300,000 and hopefully 350,000 by the end of Zelda's 35th anniversary, which begins now. And do not miss any videos, press the shiny bell and again for all notifications. Number 10. Breath of the Wild. A good story needs a solid backstory, but must have its primary focus on the present, be well balanced when it comes to pacing, include multiple plot twists, and slowly but surely build up towards an ending. Sadly, Breath of the Wild lacks the structure found in the later games that we'll soon cover. The main villain is there, but does not communicate and is not intelligent or cunning. I think the best way of describing Breath of the Wild is that it feels much like a truly epic story that has simply been set on pause, so that we can be distracted by everything else the open air of Hyrule has to offer. The pre-Calamity lore and setting in Breath of the Wild is deeply fascinating, but it's so hard to get the full meaning of that you need us Zelda theorists to even locate it, and more so, understand it. And that is the issue with the story outside of remembering the champions and Princess Zelda. It is scattered and hidden away from the main quest, which sadly only offers fragments of what happened 100 years and 10,000 years ago. The game's story could have been salvaged by the memories, but these are sadly a fragmented mess where you watch a cutscene without feeling as a part of said scene. The main reason being lack of any build-up. Flashback storytelling in games can be extremely engaging, but they depend on something actually occurring between the scenes. Lack of gameplay sequences in flashbacks was simply a missed opportunity, as nearly all of Breath of the Wild's cutscenes and thus the story tied to these could have been so much more interesting and fleshed out. For a Zelda where storytelling was sacrificed for the best gameplay and freedom in the series, it saddens me that the story has little to no gameplay attached to the cutscenes we see, and that is why we're opening the list with the launch title of the Nintendo Switch. But before we go into the rest of the entries, a word from our sponsor, Audible, the storytelling expert. Since we're talking about the best stories in the Zelda series, I want to bring up some of my favorite lectures. Recently, I've been listening to Blake J. Harris' classic Console Wars book, detailing the incredible battle between the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis in the early 1990s. I cannot recommend this title enough, as it is pure quality. Other than this video game industry classic, I have to bring some of my absolute favorite novels, available as audiobooks, namely Andrzej Sapkowski's complete 7-novel The Witcher Saga, including the Netflix adapted The Last Wish, and obviously George R.R. Martin's The Game of Thrones saga, A Song of Ice and Fire. All of these are available to listen as audiobooks, and by heading over to audible.com/Commonwealth Realm, clicking the link in the description below, or if you live in the US, texting Commonwealth Realm to 500 you will get a 30-day free trial of Audible and be able to listen to my recommended novels and many more current and upcoming titles, like Anthony M. Bean's The Psychology of the Legend of Zelda, which is up 2 days after the upload of this video, so check it out today. Now, back to our favorite Zelda stories, at least until Breath of the Wild sequel is out. Number 9. The Minish Cap. No doubt Capcom's best Zelda story, and they're only set fully in Hyrule, bringing the first non-Ganon main villain, Vati, in the series, and his troubled past with Eslo aka Link's Hat is really what makes this story better than the first entry. The multi-layer between the Hylians and Minish is what makes this a very exciting story to follow, and also one where we get into the insanity of the main villain, which the game prepares us throughout the entire story to face. When the confrontation finally occurs, it truly reveals how twisted Vati is, willing to sacrifice his newly achieved humanity to cling to power. The Minish Cap story has much of what you desire: a motivated villain you love to hate, an interesting backstory that ties to the gameplay and your in-game companion, plot twists, and a satisfying conclusion. Pretty much what every Zelda game needs, but on an obviously smaller scale than some of the later entries. Number 8. A Link Between Worlds, shared with A Link to the Past. Yes, two games, since their stories are very similar, but if I have to choose, I would still go with A Link Between Worlds. The scenario of two kingdoms instead of a kingdom and Ganon's Dark World is just more fascinating. The battle for the Triforce is between two monarchies and two princesses, and the stake is the existence of each kingdom. That makes the story interesting, as the true reason for this conflict is not revealed until the ending of the game, which is among the most satisfying in the entire series. Both games have multiple clever plot twists and multiple villain characters who drive the plot forward. A Link Between Worlds has the stronger cast of antagonists, and that makes its story slightly more engaging than A Link to the Past. It is also its ending that lands these dual games a spot above the Minish Cap on this list. Number 7. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. I will say it straight out. If you haven't played this game, skip to this point in the video, as there's no way to talk about Age of Calamity's story and its placement on this list without talking about spoilers. I'll give you 7 seconds and then we'll go into it. I love this story, but hate its final part. Not because of how the story ends, but rather due to its lack of lasting consequences. Yes, chapters 5, 6 and 7 are the purest form of fanfiction, but before that point, we have a beautiful prequel story to Breath of the Wild. Well, kind of, as the timelines have already split after the arrival of the Egg Guardian from the future of Ruin, and the Calamity teams up with a different villain. The story up to the Tear Beam, Let's Go Overboard fanfiction is solid, and fleshes the key characters of Breath of the Wild so much more than its source material ever did. We see their charisma, skill, force, and concerns through both cutscenes and gameplay. And it is a shame that this brilliant build-up falls somewhat apart in the final chapters, as it forces an ending which in my and many others' eyes is just way too happy. Do I need to say more? Please fix this power of friendship bullshit, or you so anticipated Breath of the Wild sequel. Number 6. Link's Awakening. The story of Link's Awakening is a story of escape, but at a massive cost. There's no main villain, but rather a dilemma that plagues us until the end credits. And that is what makes this game so great, a massive plot twist that makes you question your further quest and wonder whether you are the villain of the story. I think I will leave it at that, since if you haven't played the remake already on the Nintendo Switch, then I don't want to spoil this island experience for you. I'll just say this: Link's Awakening's story is a powerful classic that shines thanks to Yoshiaki Koizumi's brilliant writing. Yes, the Mario and Switch hardware Yoshiaki Koizumi, an absolute mad lad when it comes to amazing storytelling. Seriously, Nintendo, let this man write more Mario and Zelda stories. He did an amazing job in Super Mario Galaxy with Rosalina's story and Link's Awakening's massive plot twist. Number 5. Twilight Princess. The probably most epic Zelda story, but which suffers of a few missteps and missed opportunities, which costs it an even higher spot on this list. Twilight Princess definitely deserves recognition for its tragic and dark backstory, ongoing occupation scenario, solid hero and companion interaction, sacrifice, numerous plot twists and turning points, and an ending that ties all the loose threads together. The scripted story sequences against King Bulblin are among the best story and gameplay sequences in the series. The main quest aimed at helping key side characters is simply brilliant. Though the problem of Twilight Princess, and not only in the story department, is that it suffers from unused potential. From the resistance found in Castletown, which is a massive missed opportunity that could have been so much greater. Instead, they make a small move close to the end of the game. In many ways, we can say the same about the hero Shade being an optional questline after the first encounter. Having him being a part of the main quest and also preparing us for the final confrontation against his arch-nemesis would have made the story even better. Oh, and Ganondorf's alliance with Zant could have been executed a little better throughout the entire game, instead of just in the final hours of our adventure. Number 4. Ocarina of Time. The perfectly paced Zelda story, with a fantastic introduction to the human Ganon, an ingenious plot twist, and additional plot twists on top of it, all building up to the confrontation in the Zelda series, one that is still waiting to be surpassed. Ocarina of Time, and more specifically the story of the hero of time in Hyrule, is nothing short of a classic, a simple story but with heavy themes of discovery, loss, and growing up. All the characters in this game have a purpose to the main quest, as they are impacted by it in one way or another. Well, for the most part, Ganondorf's rise, brutal takeover, and 7-year-long rule over Hyrule with an iron fist. The shock of waking up as an adult after pulling the Master Sword and then discovering what remains of Hyrule Castletown is one of the most brilliant plot-driving devices in the entire series. And there's just so much more as you slowly but surely do your best to salvage Hyrule from Ganondorf's evil. By the time you enter his castle, you know that you have experienced a story worth replaying, and then you're left there after the credits with the most crucial event in the Zelda series, the timeline split. Now then, let's get into the podium, and we start with the Zelda love and origin story, Skyward Sword. Yes, love is in the air, and I wouldn't be surprised if the song inspired the plot of Skyward Sword. But instead of being a cliché, it is a drama where you feel the tension from the beginning to the final battle. And that is what makes the story of Skyward Sword so good. Oh, and Girahim. He is evil and he loves it, to a degree that he lets Link slip away as he isn't nearly as fabulous as him. But joking aside, Skyward Sword's story truly benefits from the game's linearity and its focus on 5 key characters: Link, Zelda, Impa, Girahim, and Groose. All characters that you fall in love with after some initial hesitation. That is what makes the story shine. Yes, you have your cliché love triangle that terrible writing advice will plaster all over this game, but in return, Skyward Sword handles it surprisingly well, as Groose slowly but surely grows on you as you realize that he is a bully, but with a soft heart. The journey to its ending is Skyward Sword's great foray, and the discovery of the source of the everlasting curse tied to the hatred of power, wisdom, the blood of the goddess, and courage, the spirit of the hero. I really got nothing else to say. A great story with a bittersweet ending. Number 2. Majora's Mask. The nightmare of the hero of time just got worse in Termina. That is the best way of describing Majora's Mask's story, as you are thrown into the most uncomfortable of situations. Majora's Mask is by all means the darkest story in the series. Well, at least until Breath of the Wild sequel, if it's able to surpass it, as its themes of departures and moving on from the past are so mature that it is surprising that this story even exists in the Zelda franchise. Majora's Mask's main quest delivers a solid foundation that doesn't slip in the slightest, as it addresses one crucial theme that Nintendo of today would not even touch, namely death and how to cope with the unavoidable for all of us. And in Majora's Mask, the presence of death is everywhere, in the characters we meet, but most of all the moon that is on its way to crush us. Majora's Mask also perfectly balances the overarching main quest and the personal tragedies that unfold underneath them in some of the best side quests in the entire series. And it is these depressing quest lines that end right before we go back in time and leave them all to die over and over again. The cutscene of the Apocalypse of Termina is the darkest in the entire series, as everyone in Termina perishes after 72 in-game hours. The fact that time is reset over and over, just like in Groundhog Day, makes it even more clear that you cannot solve everyone's problems in that time frame, but you can, at the very least, in your final attempt, save their lives from Majora. Luckily, I will not leave you on a low point, but rather on a high, as our favorite Zelda story of all time is none other than The Wind Waker. And it wins based on its level of personality and the depth of these. One of few games in the series where Link has a family that he deeply cares about, and where he sets out with a group of literal pirates to save his beloved sister. In The Wind Waker, failure is a crucial part of the journey, as you initially fail to free your sister from Ganondorf's clutches and are instead forced to sail the Great Sea to find another way to defeat the Helmrock King and Ganondorf. From here on out, we team up with a number of gorgeous characters who become crucial later on after the first of the big plot twists is revealed. The land of Hyrule exists, but is sealed under the Great Sea, the only exceptions being the islands, which are the former peaks of the kingdom. You live in the shadow of the Hero of Time and have to work hard in order to establish your own title as the Hero of Winds. And you will continue to fail, after saving your sister when confronting Ganondorf for the first time and then on top of his tower. And it is the many setbacks and subsequent plot twists, along with Ganondorf's depth and ideological conflict with King Daphnes, that makes the Wind Waker's story stand out from the rest. As Ganondorf, despite his more reflective new self, is not able to give up on the past that was Hyrule, unlike King Daphnes, who just want the remaining Hylians to move on. That defines the quintessential Zelda story in my eyes, well at least until something is able to surpass it in the future. Anyway, since we're uploading this video during the 35th anniversary of the Zelda series, well, as its start, I would love if we could get over 3,500 likes on this video. Then subscribe, as I want to thank you so much again for 275,000 subscribers. 300,000 next, and who knows, maybe we can even make 350,000 before this anniversary is over. Finally, I want to give a big thanks to Audible for sponsoring this video, and to all our great patrons on patreon.com/commonrealm, and in particular our royal producer Charles Shash. Anyway, please enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.